Well, another exclusive here for Turf Business TV. We're joined by Chris Stickels, who's Clerk of the Course here at Ascot. Chris, a lovely day today and a lovely place to work, I'm sure.
Oh, it's a great place to work, yes, particularly when the sun shines. Yeah, it's great.
And your background, you didn't start out as a Clerk of the Course, I guess nobody does, but you've come through the ground side of things.
I did, yeah. Originally I was a farmer. Yeah, we've got a family farm in Kent. I looked after the sheep side of the business and the kind of grassland management. The farm sadly was not really big enough to support my brother and I, so I found another career in groundsmanship and was groundsman and then head groundsman originally at Folkestone Racecourse, which is now sadly closed.
So after your time as head groundsman at Folkestone, what happened next?
Well, I was asked to train up to be a Clerk of the Course at that point, so I was then Clerk of the Course for Folkestone, subsequently Windsor and then Lingfield before coming here in 2005.
Well, Chris, in 2005 when you joined, there wasn't actually any racing happening, was there?
No, this was closed for redevelopment in 2004. So the new stand was being rebuilt, and in fact, the straight course that we're standing on now and parts of the round course were being remade and re-levelled as well. So yeah, no, there was no racing going on until we reopened in May 2006.
So that was a major redevelopment to walk in on. What were you looking to achieve with the turf side of things here then, Chris?
Well, we were looking for. The object of redoing the track was to eliminate the turf crossings. At that point, there were roads crossing the track, and there were mats that needed to be put down in order for the horses to race across them. We wanted to get rid of all those so that we made a proper world-class facility. Also, the track was moved slightly away from the high street so that the new stand could be built behind it, but behind the track, and then the parade ring could be built between that and the road. So the whole redesign involved a slight movement of the track and the elimination of the road crossings to make it a more consistent, safer surface. And then it was completely redrained, new soil profile, sand mixed with the original soil that was here to create a faster draining surface and one that would put up with more wear.
And you've now got essentially two different tracks here because you've got one still that's on the original kind of setup and the new developed areas. Does that give you challenges in trying to keep those two surfaces consistent and the same?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a challenge and an objective of ours that we needed to deliver, and I think we've done a very good job of it really. Obviously, the longer that this track has been here now, and this is now 2017, it's redone in 2005. This has got more organic matter has built up within this sandy surface. It has got more consistent with the old, but obviously we've had to use different management techniques in order to make sure that on a race day they're as consistent as possible. So this new sand-based track would need more water, need more vertidraining, needs more feeding than the other track. So it's just a case of closely monitoring each surface and making sure that we can deliver that consistent surface that we're looking to achieve.
Okay, so we talk about consistency, but in terms of a detail and a profile, what are you looking for good racing and safe racing on your surfaces?
Well, you need, as I say, kind of consistent surface, one that's fast enough for a horse to be able to gallop out and stretch out without it ideally being too soft. I mean, clearly you can't help if the weather's been severe and very wet, and a horse will obviously not get as good a purchase on the ground if it is kind of deep and kind of heavy, watered ground or very wet ground. So you want a fast surface, but it also needs to be safe in terms of giving it so that a horse can gallop safely on it. They're fragile animals, thoroughbreds, and they need to be able to feel some forgiveness in the racing surface, i.e. it can't be too firm. If you have it too firm, then some horses won't gallop to their best ability on it. So it needs to be a bit of a balance between enough moisture in the ground to give it some forgiveness, but yet also fast enough for them to be able to stretch out and actually move nicely on it.
Always hearing mention of the going on TV coverage and in the papers. Good to firm, I know, is what you're aiming at here for flat racing. But what does that actually mean, Chris?
The ranges of going go from firm, or in fact a really fast surface would be called hard, and then as it gets softer it goes firm, good to firm, good to soft, and eventually heavy before you get to a kind of a waterlogged surface. And that's how we use in this country to describe how the track is expected to ride. So one can tell racing professionals, owners and trainers, jockeys and punters alike how the track might ride. Good to firm is what the British Horse Racing Authority like us to achieve for flat racing if we can. we're allowed a certain amount of movement on that with a multi-day meeting such as Royal Ascot, which is held over 5 days. So in order to maintain good to firm ground, that would be a huge challenge over those 5 days. So we tend to like to start on a going slightly easier than that. So more of a good ground type of going, and then letting it dry to good to firm as the week goes on. But good to firm is, in fact, it's pretty similar to what we're on today. I mean, we've had a nice dry spring so far, pretty warm as well.
There's obviously scientific ways that you work this out with a going stick, which is electronic and gives you computerised readings, but you still rely, I think, on the traditional stick that you've got in your hand here. Show us how you actually determine what the going is.
Sure, okay. We walk around the course. I walk around the course with my wooden stick, and I push it into the ground on lots of occasions as I walk round, trying to determine the resistance that I'm feeling from it, as well as kind of the shear. And that is also actually what the going stick does. That will take a digital kind of measurement of how much resistance it feels when you push it in. You have to push it into a certain depth, and then also when you pull the stick back, it gives you a reading of the shear that the turf is holding against the stick, and that will then, we would take about 250 readings around the course. Wow, using that digital stick, and that will give you a digital readout at the end of it, an average so you can compare that with the going description you're giving. I still use the wooden stick, but in conjunction with the digital official going stick, that gets used as well, and it's a very good tool.
Have you ever had an occasion where the digital ones told you something different to what you know?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that does happen occasionally. Different times of the year, the ground can react differently and feel differently. I mean, we always find that in the spring and autumn. Actually, it will generally ride softer than you think it's going to. If you and we use a vertidrain a lot here. If you use a vertidrain, the stick sometimes will give a different reading to what I'm expecting it to, because the ground has been relieved of compaction, or the profile is a bit looser than perhaps it might ride. So also if the track's worn, wet, really wet and worn, or poached because it's had a lot of wear, then sometimes that too will give a different reading to what you're expecting. But generally we find it pretty consistent. We have a good race program here, where races are we don't have a really heavy period of racing, only kind of Royal Ascot. So generally the turf is in really good condition, and you can get a decent kind of correlation with the going stick.